good evening, everybody. Welcome to our evening session at our ICW Singapore 2020 event. Today, our third day. Thank you for joining us, and later tonight, 6:30, we will have a fantastic session with Lynn Tan and Debbie Hogan around what does the latest ICF core competency change mean for us. It's going to be very interactive and a great opportunity to ask questions. Before that, we want to get into the right listening state, and tonight we have Ting Ning. Ting Ning is the principal of Wonderful People. She is a certified coach and therapist with over 17 years of experience. Ting Ning graduated from the Process Work Institute USA with a master's in process work, and she is first qualified practitioner in whole of Asia outside Japan. Her process work training enables her clients to navigate through uncertain situations, as we are all experiencing in this situation, in the workplace and in life, and turn situation of tension, challenge, and complexity into synergistic opportunities and creative solutioning. She has practiced in an international setting, applying her skills to diversity issues such as cross-cultural communication, conducting community dialogues and workshops on racism in US and Singapore. Welcome, Ting Ning. I look forward to your session. The stage is yours.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. I think with this evening session, we are officially in the second half of the International Coach Week. So I'm very happy to be able to support this endeavor with my little contribution tonight. So today, since the morning's topic with Dr. Rao that has so much interest in awareness and conscious work, so I'm also very excited to be a representative of my modality that is called process-oriented psychology, also known as process work, and share that with everybody tonight. So what does process mean in my lineage? Okay, so process here refers to process philosophy that is about change. And if you see is there my slide to share flash again?
Yes.
Thank you, John.
Do you see, sorry. I'm blocked now, just a second.
Okay.
This one, which slide?
The title for tonight, Connecting to Your River Nature.
Give me 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Slide number 2.
Okay, so you may or may not have heard this quote famously said by Heraclitus, a Greek philosopher of a long time ago. No man ever steps into the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he's not the same man. So this morning, Dr. Rao told us that control is an illusion because a greater reality is change is a constant, right? So our nature, the reality's nature is always in a flux, is dynamic. Things are always changing and nothing stays still. So tonight, I'm going to introduce everybody to a different way of doing mindfulness, that is to step into this river of change and connect with it to increase your toolkit for awareness practice. So to distinguish it from various forms of mindfulness practice, there's probably the one type that is keeping your mind blank. So if I say there's a river, right, your objective is to stay blank. Don't let your monkey mind think of the river and be empty. So that's one way of mindfulness practice, stay with the blankness. There's another way is, oh, there's a river, okay, just focus on one thing, that's the river, and notice the river and just let it pass, okay? So you practice being an observer this way. What I'm going to introduce to you today is, there's a river, you become the river. Okay, so what do we mean by that? Okay, so you can John, you can bring the slides off, take the slides off. Okay. So one very important skills or the know-how to do process-oriented mindfulness is this idea of amplification. Okay, so when you notice something, I want you to pay even more attention to it, add energy to it, and intensify the experience. So we'll start off by doing a very simple exercise, right? So if you've been following the ICW's Zoom meetings for the whole day, or you're multitasking at work, I'm sure everybody is a bit tired at the end of the day, right? So to energize yourself, whether find yourself a comfortable position, whether you're sitting in a chair, you want to be on the floor, you want to stand up, all up to you. Okay, and just bring yourself back into the body. Okay, feel your butt in the chair, feel your butt against the floor, maybe your back is against something. Okay, notice the sensations in your hand, your skin, your legs. Okay, just check in and make sure that you are home. And as you continue to observe and you do a scan, notice where the tensions are. Maybe somewhere is a little bit stiff. Maybe somewhere feels a little bit imbalanced. Maybe there's a little bit of movement that's trying to happen. Okay, just be with it, right? Because the normal way of dealing with all these uncomfortable feelings is you want them to go away. But in this exercise, we want to experience them even more. So now as you inhale, I want you to really scrunch up and really intensify all this tense feeling in your body. Breathe in and tense it up. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. And when it's finally you can't squeeze anymore, just exhale and let go. And then inhale and notice this time how much more breath your body automatically wants to take in, and just breathe in deeper and more deeply in a way that satisfies you. And continue taking in more breath and notice where your body wants it, and just let the breath go in and fill it up before you finally exhale. And breathe in some more where you really want to fill up, and let it fill up. And exhale. Okay, and then one more time. We're going to inhale and scrunch up all over, scrunch up again. Everybody ready? Okay, find a comfortable position and you're ready. Let's inhale and squeeze, 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 squeeze yourself into a tight ball. Amplify, intensify, squeeze until you can't squeeze anymore. And let go. And notice in this exhale, more breath wants to come in, and if you're going to melt further, as the body becoming softer, as it becoming more fluid, and notice what's changing internally inside of you. Continue to breathe. Where does your breath want to go? And let it fill up. Inhale and exhale. Don't fight the tension and just let it go. No control, Don't try to control that with your mind, and just follow your body and follow what it wants to do. Your body knows best, right? This is our greater wisdom. This is our greater intelligence, right? This is beyond our cognitive mind. Breathe in, follow your body, and on exhale, continue to allow yourself to melt. And follow your body and how it wants to move, where it wants to go. Do you want to like double up and melt into the floor? Follow it. Don't resist it. Give yourself permission to follow. Okay, and one more time. We're going to breathe in and intensify. If you're ready, inhale. In and suck your air in, and at the same time go and squeeze your last ounce of energy. Where else is it tight and tense? Increase that tension and breathe in and squeeze, 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 squeeze until you're almost about to explode, and exhale. And allow yourself to melt. And inhale, and exhale, and continue to notice what's changing in your body. What does it want to do now? And follow it. Follow the sensation, follow the movement. How does it want to move? Is it a standing up? You might want to stand up. You might want to sit further. You want to sink in. And your goal now is to support your experiencing of what's happening deeper. Really what is trying to happen now spontaneously in the moment. Don't try to control it, let that go. Right? So if I model it for you, I'm not controlling the movement in my body. I'm just feeling into how it wants to move and follow it. Right? Why is this important? Because in our day-to-day self, we are supposed to normally walk straight. Right? But when we try to be normal, we are actually cutting off, we are ignoring all the internal experiences that are actually there. So if we can allow ourselves to embrace all the internal going on more and unpack that and see what wisdom it has for us. So if you allow yourself to continue in this exercise and just feel into your body and notice what's trying to happen and give it permission to go. Okay, if you're feeling, if you're sinking, allow yourself to sink further. If you feel that you are heavy, allow yourself to be heavier and just go. Okay, if you notice a slight movement that's emerging, support that movement. Make the movement more satisfactory. If the movement can be more complete, how would it move? Right? Allow all these internal diversity to happen. Okay, and really enjoy this process of flow inside you. Okay, don't resist. And let this flow direct you, and let this flow direct your attention, your experience. Let this flow show you what it wants to show you. It might be a visual experience too. You might be seeing pictures, images, colors. brightness or darkness. That's okay, that's too. It could be a very organic movement that your body wants to make, and make it too. Just relish in this very subtle sensations that is using your body as a channel to express themselves. If you're a bit shy to engage your body to move, I would like to invite you to move a little. Maybe you don't need to move the whole body. You can use your hands to shape that feeling. Great, I see some people responding to the cue to move. Fantastic, you're doing a great job, right? So you can move. And how does the body want to move? Is it like a lifting feeling, a stretch, an expansion? Is it a going in? And just let it be. And like a river, don't control it, and just be in the flow of things. And it's like a new friend. This is a part of you that's like a new friend. Get to know this friend. Let it show you more of itself. Maybe there's a sound, maybe there's a music that's coming up. Maybe it's like a or you could hear a brrr, brrr. Yeah, some of you might be auditory. It's all okay. Okay, so now as you really allow yourself to connect with this flow that's happening inside you, and you're nice and soft and fluid, just notice what new qualities is this state of being bring to you. For some people, might be stillness. For some people, could be joy, lightness, solidness, whatever. And just enjoy this new way of being that is so rarely part of our day-to-day self. Remember to breathe and connect even deeper with this new part of you. And when you're ready, think of an earth spot somewhere on earth or somewhere in nature where these qualities or energies or being can be found. And allow yourself to shape shift and transform into this part of nature. and become this part of nature. And just notice the essence of this nature. Is it like a sea? Is it like a big tree? Maybe a rock shows up for you. I had a guy participant who became a bright red flower and he was so happy to be one. Right? I had another participant who became a rabbit and she was absolutely delighted in that moment of becoming a rabbit. Okay? Yeah, and just notice that being this part of nature, how is it like? What qualities does it bring to you? And where does this quality, how are these qualities most needed in your day-to-day life? Okay. And as you connect to it, you can feel free to meditate a little bit longer on it. So for those of you who are ready and feeling quite done, you can share in your chat. Where do you become? What nature, part of nature do you become? What qualities does it give you? And that's the present for today's mindfulness practice. Wow, headache's gone from Choi Q. Yes, that's how we can deal with physical ailments through this modality, because energy is all interchangeable, right? So we can convert anything into its a more purer energetic form and convert the energy into something meaningful. Okay, so this is hopefully this is just a tip of what we can do in 20 minutes. So hopefully it increases your tool set, your toolkit for what it can do for your mindfulness practice. Okay, so if everyone's yes, that's why I'm very excited from praying. That's why I'm very excited to share, because mindfulness, what most people are most familiar with is being still, right? But there's also active mindfulness. It's really how you can focus your attention onto something. Wow, Diana, there's a beautiful ancient tree with rich, fresh canopy. Great, yes. Right, so we transform all the tension. So the tension is actually evolving, right? It's an emergent thing. So processes like systems mind is evolving. So letting the energy unpack and unfold. And as usually, there's a lot of insight and wisdom there that's organically yours, that's waiting to reach you. Wow, Jeffrey is in the stomach. Okay. Okay, so if everybody is feeling more energized, I will pass the baton back to the ICW host and team to continue to the program proper.
Thank you so much, Tingning. I really appreciate it. Amazing. Thank you again. A very good start to get into the right mind space. So we are just waiting until 6:30. So if you need to fill up your water or have a coffee or dessert after dinner, it's time. We will start in a few minutes. Thank you again, Tingning. Really appreciate it. I hope you all enjoyed this morning's session with Dr. Raro and Dr. Shefali. Amazing, amazing. I was really not able the first hour after the session to really think clearly. It was so deep into me and I took so much away. And I'm sure you had a similar feeling. I am really impressed and so glad that we had them speak up this morning. Later tonight, we will also, after our session, have some action learning breakout for the last 15 minutes. It's maybe a very good opportunity to reflect on everything you heard today. So if you can stay with us until 8:15, we will really appreciate that. And from a housekeeping point of view, so we will use the chat tonight and only the chat. Because we have tried a few features, we're not going to use the raise hand. So please, if you have question, please type it into chat. We will watch out for the questions and I will do my very best to hand to the speakers in the background. It's going to be very interactive with Lynn Tan and Debbie Hogan talking about what does the latest ICF core competencies change mean for all of us as coaches and when we move up with our experience. And I also want to, as we wait for the participants to join, just make a short note on the QR code because we got a few questions. So if you have a newer phone, normally the newer phones, just when you turn on the camera and scan the QR code, there should be a link at the top. Some of the maybe not so new phones, you might need an app for that. Worst case, if your phone is not working, we have a link in the chat. Just click on it and you will get to our survey. So you can also claim your CCEUs. We have another 2 minutes to go and then we will start. And I also see we have JFC with us again. He is very loyal. Thank you and welcome, JFC. Really appreciate you taking the time joining us. Good evening, everybody. 6:30. Welcome, everyone, to ICW Singapore 2020. It is Wednesday, and it's our evening session. My name is John Nilsson, and I'm your host tonight. So first of all, thank you for joining us. And again, I'm very excited about tonight's topic, where we have Lynn Tan and Debbie Hogan talking about what does the latest ICF core competency change mean for all of us in many different ways. I'm really looking forward to that interaction and presentation. There will also be breakouts during the session and after the session. So please stay with us to also reflect on this amazing day. A few logistics before we get going. I would appreciate if everybody could mute their microphones. We have muted all microphones at the beginning, but sometimes incidentally we click the wrong button. This happens to us, but please stay muted to make this a great experience for everybody. Also tonight we will solely focus on the chat function of Zoom. So please go to the bottom bar and type in your questions. I will do my very best here to capture all the questions and hand them to both Lynn and Debbie. After the webinar, you will get access to the survey link and to claim your CCEUs. And I just want to remind you that you can claim your CCEUs if you attend this full webinar live. So if you view a recording, it's not possible to claim the CCEUs. So do us a favor, scan the code afterwards and fill out your name and email, and we will send the certificate to you in the next few weeks. The administration will close 24 hours after the webinar. Also, I want to take the opportunity to thank our sponsors, in particular, our platinum sponsors, Emergenetics. Emergenetics helps people and organizations to improve communication, collaboration, and culture, resulting in positive and productive workplaces. They have put together a very attractive gift for all ICW participants this year, and it's worth $350. You will get an email next week that you should really watch out for and register, because you will get access to your own Emergenetics profile report. Also, you will get access to fantastic information on their web and a mobile app. And last but not least, you will get a special webinar focused on coaching. So please watch out for the email being sent to you next week. Also, I want to take the opportunity to thank our silver sponsors. So we have the Coach Partner, and the Coach Partner has brought the new field suite of coaching training programs to Asia since 2010. They are in the market since 1991, and they have more than 65,000 graduates around the world. And they are considered as a golden standard when it comes to coaching certification programs. Also, I want to thank you, Starting Point. They are the authorized provider of everything DISC certification and solution, 5 behaviors of a cohesive team and building trust solution. And they are specialized in customized workshops and coaching for leadership and organizational improvement and transformation. Last but not least, the coaching app, your executive coach in your pocket. You don't want to miss that. It's all the knowledge and guidance and tools you need in your pocket to take care of your personal development and to make it reality. So thank you to all 3 sponsors. So now I want to take this opportunity to slowly introduce our speakers. And all of you have seen communication from ICF, I think late 2019, that the ICF core competencies has changed. And there has been a lot of questions around what does it mean when I certify, to my certification, to my skills. So I'm really, really looking forward to this session with Lynn Tan and Debbie Hogan. So let me first introduce Lynn Tan. Lynn has been doing coaching since 2004 and is one of the 8 ICF Master Certified coaches in Singapore and one of the MCCs out of the 1,000 around the world. She has well more than 4,000 coaching hours based on her work as a coach with organizations and teams. Lynn is specialized in leadership coaching and doing training for coaches. She is often sought out by leaders who want to build exceptional presence and teams. She serves on the leadership team of ICF and is our current president for 2020. She was also a finalist for the ICF Young Leader Award in 2018. She was recognized as being in the top 11 around the world for her successful efforts in progressing the coaching industry internationally. Wow, very impressive. In 2020, she received the top 101 Global Coaching Leader Award by World HRD Congress. Wow, I'm really impressed here. Well done, Lynn. Her work has been recognized also in media, has done many interviews in Channel News Asia, Simply Her, and also she has been the co-author of 2 books. One of them became a bestseller. So we couldn't be more happy than having Lynn with us tonight. Also, Debbie Hogan. She is the owner and managing director of the Academy of Solution Focused Training since 2004. She has been in private practice since 1993, a lot of experience here, as a coach, trainer, and psychotherapist. She is an executive coach, a trainer, and has extensive experience with multinational companies across many different industries. Debbie was trained by Iso Kimberg and Steve DeChaser, I hope I pronounced his name correctly here. The developers are a developer of solution-focused practice. She is Master Solution Focused Practitioner and Examiner for IASTI. She is also Examiner and Certified Solution Focused Therapist and Coach with the CCPC. Debbie is a professional ICF PCC coach, and she has trained coaches all over Asia and the US. And she has also contributed to many books, including The Art of Solution-Focused Therapy, Encounters with Steve DeChaser and Inso Kimberg, and a co-editor of Solution-Focused Practice in Asia. This reminds me about I have to finish my book. But first of all, I'm really happy to have Debbie Hogan and Lynn on stage, and I would like to start with a short little poll with all of you, because I want to understand who we have in the room tonight. So if you can do me a favor and open a tab in your browser or on your phone and go to mentimeter.com and enter the code 408359 and tell us who you are so we understand our audience tonight. And we have more than 130 participants, so I look forward for a lot of feedback here. Okay. I see a lot of ACC accredited coaches, a lot of PCC, 4 MCCs, and a lot of aspiring coaches, 28.
John, this is wonderful. I mean,
Very
we have
nice
so
mix.
many PCCs, ACCs, we have 4 MCCs. And Debbie, this would totally add to the whole flavor of what we're trying to do tonight, right? Because we're talking about the core competency changes, but also it's something that all of us need to own as a community and as professional coaches. So it's great. We have so much wisdom and knowledge that can be circulated and cross-fertilized in the room later. Good. Okay.
So I think we are good to go, Lynn and Debbie.
Okay,
The
so I'll move on
stage
to
is
the
yours.
next slide. Thank you so much, John. What is a burning question you have about the updated core competencies? So Debbie and I want to check in first and foremost. What are your top of mind concerns, questions that you want to have clarified from today? I think we're going to get the what's new question like a zillion times. What's new? What are the main differences? Yeah, what does it mean for me in terms of my practice and also in terms of accreditation or credentialing? So a lot of you are concerned about impact. Will that make certification easier? Okay. All right, what is the purpose and the end outcome? What distinguishes a PCC from ACC and MCC from a PCC? Okay. Debbie, what do you think of the questions?
Exactly the content of what we're going to be covering. So it may mean that we have to have more discussions. Lots of great questions.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I like this. Why did this happen? Why now? That was my question. Yeah, impact is a key theme here, isn't it? What difference is it going to make?
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
So guys, I have just sent out slides in the chat box. So please feel free to download that, and you can use it to follow us through the session. And I'll explain why. That's really because when it comes to core competencies or PCC markers, they are linked, but they are different. It can get a bit technical. So especially if some of you are wondering what is the change, and I know I think most of you want sort of the broader picture, what is the change that I need to know, but some of you might be really curious about the specific changes. Now, all this is on the website, but I think the slides will also help in terms of the discussions later. All right, Debbie, you ready to roll?
Yeah, so we're going to give a little plan first, or we're going to pop right into it?
We will have to set up a plan. That's what we'll do, right? In the first, second competency. So before that, I just want to say I'm so excited to be doing this together with Debbie. I respect Debbie a lot. There's mutual respect and admiration from me to her, and I hope the other way around as well. And I remember we met 2 years ago when I was running a credentialing initiative. At the time I was really serving on Exco, and I saw on my list. So I had just finished training the PCC marker workshop with ICF HQ, and I thought, okay, a lot of coaches in Singapore need to understand the markers because this is what assessors use to benchmark our quality and our standards of coaching. And so I ran a workshop, and I saw on the list Debbie Hogan. I was like, oh my God, the Debbie Hogan. Oh no, she's gonna come to my workshop. And we met and we crossed paths there. And I think ever since then, it's been quite magical. And since she joined Exco this year as well, I've enjoyed so much working with her.
Yeah.
A big kudos also to Ting Ling. Thank you for setting up the session. And I do want to draw links to what Ting Ling did. And what she did kind of encapsulated the whole essence of today, especially the morning sessions that we had. It was very intense on the essence level. So that was fantastic. And while tonight's session does kind of change gear a little bit into more technical things, there is still a link in that what we do as coaches is both the essence level and the capability or the ability level, right? So you'll find that in addressing and understanding the core competencies on a deeper level, and the changes are exciting, and we'll come to that, you will find that it also, while it addresses capability, it also adds to our essence as a coach. So we're going to run through the changes to the ICF core competencies, and we'll start right at the beginning. How did the changes come about, and how did ICF arrive at this updated version? We would then review the themes that have emerged from this new version, and together with you, study how it flows through all the competencies. So why are the ICF core competencies important to us coaches? How do they serve us in our coaching? So earlier today, Dr. Rao and Dr. Shefali's sessions really awoken the agent of change and consciousness within us. And it reinforced our choice in our work as coaches. We are change agents. We are healers. We are catalysts. We are instruments used for a greater good. And coaching is simply a form. It's a label. It's a name of a vehicle that we've chosen to get good in. And while there is a way to coach, what we actually are doing is having a conversation that invokes change through creating an experience with your client that triggers and calls forth their truer self. And that's a beautiful intention, but many of us would have realized that it's not that simple. And I recall the very first time after my coach training, I came out and I'm so eager and I'm like, yeah, I can do this. And when I start coaching people, it's like, oh my God, I can't do this, because I get the concept, but then embodying the competencies is a completely different thing. So in our training as coaches, we learn, well, in our coach training, we learn the how, we learn the discipline behind what it takes to have these conversations. And it is the discipline of partnering with our clients, but also the discipline of partnering with ourselves in the coaching process. And the updated version actually emphasizes this quite a bit. So yeah, how do we navigate this dance between ego and essence? So I'd like to also make a note before we kind of dive in that Debbie and I are both coach trainers. We're both trained. We've gone through the PCC market training. And our role here today is to share the new updates and to facilitate this conversation about what this means for all of us. But we are all on even playing field. We are with you to co-create it. We cannot say that we know better. We don't come from that. We know these better than you. And in fact, Debbie and I have very different training and coaching styles. But yet the core competencies align us to a gold standard of delivery. So the competencies are a guide for all of us, but it is by no means meant to instruct you in how you should or should not be. And you have, and you will continue to find your own way, your unique blend of style and essence and skill that would make you a unique coach. All right, so we are passing on the message of the core competency changes. We do not represent ICF, so we'll pass on what we have understood, and then together as a community, we need to co-create that. The session is called a panel, but the fact is we all in the session today, we all form this panel because we're all doing this work together all the time in our coaching and sometimes even in our daily lives. So the invitation this evening is to co-create the session so that we can all harness the collective wisdom. And there was so much of that going on as the ICW days progressed. Everybody was sort of responding to each other in chat, etc. So we want to play up on that. I'm very excited about the updates, Debbie. I find that it's succinct, it's simplified, and yet it's more true to our work. And as a result, it actually invites an expansion of who we are. What do you think of the new updates?
Well, I admit when I first heard that they were coming out with new core competencies after I had just been through the PCC training and learned the current, I thought, oh, really? Are you kidding me? There's new ones? And then as I dived into it and started to see all the work involved and how they organized this massive research that included 1,300 coaches and a very rigorous research, I began to appreciate the laborious work, the painstaking work involved in collecting the data and collating the data. And it's a relevant piece of information for us that really, to me, is more relevant in terms of what is coaching in today's landscape. And I like that because it reflects the current landscape of coaching. So we're going to look at some of the slides that give an overview of why the need for new competencies. So that's the agenda, right? That's what we're going to cover. I think we've already mentioned that.
Yep. Okay, moving along.
Yeah. And if you really like juicy details, go to the ICF website. Carrie Abner, Director of Credentialing and Accreditation, Joel D. Girolamo, Director of the Coaching Science, and George Rogers, Director of Quality Assurance with Credentialing and Accreditation. They spearheaded this wonderful piece of work. And there are webinars and videos and slide decks if you really want juicy details. So the development of the core competencies. Well, since 1998, the ICF core competencies have provided a vital foundation for the coaching profession. And ICF is the largest global certification body for professional coaches. This group of pioneers in 1998 met in this newly emerging field of coaching, met for the first time. And they began to discuss around the table what it means to be a coach practitioner. Like what's the knowledge, abilities, skills, capabilities involved in being a good coach, and how does this body of work and information differentiate us from other professionals? And they identified some common elements that really define the coaching profession. And when they got together and defined these, that's how the core competencies were developed, and then that's how they were really became the mark for the coaching competencies in our profession. And this was independent of the coaching styles or philosophical approaches of this group of coaches who met together and formed these initial core competencies. So in every profession, there are what they call best professional practices, where they do regular job analysis. And the last time this was performed in 2008 within the ICF, and this is to ensure that the competency model is a valid and accurate reflection of the practice, of our professional practice. And you all know, we're living in change all the time. The coaching profession has grown and evolved significantly. Even in Singapore, in just a month, our lives have dramatically changed. So the team decided, hey, it's time to update. It's been what? I'm doing the math. It's been 9 years. So it's time to update. And that was one of the reasons, was to check the current landscape. What is coaching now? So this is a little information about how they perform the current job analysis. It was over 24 months from 2017 and 2019. And you all know that in November of 2019, they announced the new core competencies. And this was a very rigorous endeavor. They surveyed over 1,300 coaches for data validation. The process involved workshops, interviews, a comprehensive global survey, and they invited coaches from all over the world in many, many diverse backgrounds, disciplines, contexts. There were internal, external coaches, all levels of experience, from ACC, PCC, that really represented coaching across the globe, across gender. And they even involved coaches that were not affiliated with the ICF, because they wanted to get a different and a variety of perspectives. And these are some of the results. So the empirical data that they collected actually validated that most of these original core competencies that came out in 1998 still are relevant. And then the changes that Lynn's going to share with you actually reflect a more current coaching practice. And there's some themes that emerge, and those are really exciting to me, and Lynn's going to share those. So there's a new model. It's simpler, more streamlined structure. It's more consistent and clear languaging. And this is incredible. From 1,537 words to 1,109 words. And being a minimalist, I love that. So Lynn, you're going to take it over from here and talk about the themes and really compare the old and the new, or they're not calling it old yet, the current and the updated.
Yes. Yeah. So let's not use old and new, because it makes people panic, especially in Singapore. You have the kiasu mentality or the FOMO mentality. So don't worry, guys. Whatever you have, it's still valid, it's still current, and it would still be used. Okay, we'll come to the implications just in a while. From the updated set of competencies, here are some very interesting themes that have arisen that you will see flow through all the competencies, and it's shaved down from 11 to 8. So first of all, we have ethical behavior and confidentiality, and that's paramount, right? That came up top, it came up first. All the coaches who did the survey stated that this is still of utmost importance in the work that we do. And then one of the new things that has emerged is this expansion of the coaching agreement. So that involves now the organization and the sponsors there, the overall client engagement, and the session itself. So the overall client engagement would be the job, the gig, the contract, and that could span a couple of sessions or a couple of months. And then they also talk about the agreement within the session. And I think all of you are familiar with that. So they've actually broadened it now to go into the bigger picture. We also see an emphasis on the partnership concept. And this is really beautiful because this is, to me at least, differentiates coaching from the other support modalities. And so here they're talking about how the client has an equal voice. And there's mutual accountability between both the coach and the client, and in fact, the sponsors as well. Okay, something also quite new, the concept of professional development, not so new, but the second part, reflective practice. And that's very much tied to coaching supervision, which is a different topic and discipline itself, but it hints at the same thing. And this is around how a coach would benefit from constant reflection and self-regulation. Last of all, the integration of the client's context and culture. And I love that they put this in because this addresses and it respects the wider system that the coachee is in. It could include family structures, organizational structures, team dynamics, values, and it also includes a holistic view of the client. And later on in one of the competencies, we would see that they inserted, right? So if I'm not wrong, it's the last one where we talk about actions and accountabilities, planning. They actually talk about how a coach needs to look at patterns across sessions. The current core competencies just tend to kind of focus on the session itself. So in summary so far, we have reinforced the commitment to ethics, and that is what we need to do as coaches, yes. And there's also ongoing professional development, integration of culture, context, partnership at every level and the stage of the coaching session. And all this will kick into effect next year. So don't worry, guys, because ICF understands that when they roll something out, there are there's a huge ripple effect across the globe. It affects schools, affects coaches, mentors, everybody. So it's going to come in to effect only next year. So what does this mean? It means that there's not going to be any change or impact on your CKA, your assessment, aka your exam, your credentialing, your PCC markers, nothing. This year, everything is going to be status quo. So whatever that you've been doing is still relevant. Please don't worry about that. And in fact, like what Debbie said earlier on, whatever you're doing is already the base of the expanded credential set. Okay, there will be no changes as of now. ICE Global didn't even mention anything about this. So there's no changes to the credentialing levels or the requirements between the three levels. They did say that it will be translated into other languages and it's rolling out this year. The PCC markers, which is what assessors use to benchmark quality and standards of coaching, will be reviewed or are currently being reviewed, and the updates will be released next year. And last of all, the ICF training providers, they would all have their own approach to introducing the updated core competencies. So that is down to the individual provider to determine when and how they want to bring this on board their training and their assessments. Good, now we're going to the juicy parts. And I just want to ask all of you to bear with us. There will be technical aspects to go through. But again, as we go through the differences, I also want you to notice and think about how this makes a difference to who you are as a coach and what you do as a coach. Interestingly, the new list now clearly recognizes that there are two competencies. The first two that you see on the screen actually adds to the being of the coach. And it's so lovely that they recognize that. So we'll go into the differences overview. And then just to show you the next slide quickly, I'll come back to this slide. then we'll actually go into each of the individual ones. But I'm not going to go through statement by statement because, Debbie and I were saying this is not a core competency training. Okay, we're not here to train you guys in core competencies. We're going to share the differences. And then afterwards, after we go through these little details, we will actually open it up to the floor. So we'll do a bit of Menti, we'll do questions, we'll do, people can unmute, you can share how you're receiving all this and what you understand of this.
Lynn, before you get started, can I just make a comment?
Yes.
So I see in the chat a lot of people have difficulties downloading the PDF. So some versions looks like are not supporting. Just put in your email address and we will send it to you directly. And take screenshots in this moment, but you will get it on email if you can't download. I just want to clarify because there was a lot of comments around that. Thank you.
Yeah, don't worry. You can follow the slides as we go along. It's just for some people it might be really small, the font. So that's why I decided to send the slides out. Okay, so let's begin. Now on the left-hand side, you would see the current core competency. So you see meeting ethical guidelines and professional standards. And on the right, you would see the updated ones. And the arrows would show you basically the link or the connection from the current to the updated. So first of all, they've actually split number one into two. And the first one is demonstrates ethical practice. We mentioned about how important this is, and this hasn't changed. So this is about understanding and consistently applying ethics and standards of coaching. So that's quite the same. But what's new and different, and I love this, is number two, embodies a coaching mindset. And they specifically say it's about developing and maintaining a mindset that is open, curious, flexible, and client-centered. So let's kind of go into what this means. And again, these two add to the being of the coach. So as you read this, you can think about how does this add to who I am, right? Who I am as a coach, and how do I be as a coach? Okay. So how do you read this table? On the left-hand side is the current definition and all the sub-points, and on the right-hand side is the updated one. So you'll be able to compare, the difference. And then what I've underlined with different colors are linked to the themes that we spoke about earlier on. So if you look at the ones in blue, that will link to the theme around expansion of coaching agreement. The green is integration of context and culture. And then red is ethical behavior. So let's go through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight broadly the differences, and that would be the ones that are underlined. The ones that are not underlined are pretty much the same as the current set. They just might have changed up some words or phrasing. So the first thing that we want to look at is when it comes to demonstrating ethical practice, we have two under the expansion of the coaching agreement. And what do you notice there? You have a word there called stakeholders. They now recognize the role that stakeholders and sponsors play, and they've incorporated that into our work. Now, the other thing is around being sensitive to the client's identity, environment, experience, values, and beliefs. So this falls under the integration of the client's context and culture. And last of all, they added in under red the pertinent laws that need to be covered in your contracting. Okay. Now I'm going to go through number two, and then we're going to open it up to the floor. Number two is completely new, and it embodies a coaching mindset. The definition of that is develops and maintains a mindset that is open, curious, flexible, and client-centered. So you first of all see purple. Purple is around the partnership theme. So embodying a coaching mindset acknowledges that the clients are responsible for their own choices, and this has not ever been really clearly called out in the current competencies. Now, the other thing that is so obvious here are all those underlined in yellow, which is around reflective practice. So you have engages in ongoing learning and development. Yes. So, of course, your CCEUs, attending trainings, advanced trainings, that's an example of that. But you notice here, develops an ongoing reflective practice to enhance one coaching. Debbie, what do you think of reflective practice? What do you understand of reflective practice?
I guess I should unmute.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been reflecting on that since that is the languaging. And I would love to open up this conversation to the people in this group, because I know there's a lot of people who have a lot to say about the reflective practice. But I think it's an important realization that as coaches, we have some kind of practice outside of the coaching, outside of the mentoring. And so it's sort of the idea of, for me, what do I do in my own development as a coach as I think about what I need to change, develop, or what is emerging inside of me? It's sort of just being aware as a coach. What is it I want to talk about, explore, and develop? And also reflecting on, I just did a coaching piece. What am I pleased about? What am I not pleased about? What is it that is saying about me? That's how I think of reflective practice. I would love to hear what other people think.
Yes, so please, you can put in chat what you understand of reflective practice or what you do that you would coin reflective practice. So there is reflective practice that happens in the moment. So when you feel emotions or thoughts that come in, okay, maybe being aware of that, and you will see that mentioned in the next one. Remains aware of and open to the influence of context and culture on self and others. Uses awareness of self and one's intuition to benefit clients, and mentally and emotionally prepares for sessions. So this emphasizes the role that the coach plays in the coaching process, but maybe not so much as an active role, active internally, but maybe less active externally. So again, all this is open to the floor to debate and discuss. Okay, I'm going to switch to Mentimeter because the chats move very fast. And I want to use that as a way to, at one glance, allow everybody to capture sentiments. So I'm trying to navigate. Okay.
There are some comments on the chat as well, and would love it if you could include those on the Menti list.
So how do you add to the slide? You go to www.menti.com and then they'll ask you to key in a code 408359 and you'll be able to input. Isabel, I love can totally resonate to your definition of reflective practice.
So there's these lovely comments already coming on the chat. Nancy, I'm finding working with the supervisor so meaningful and helpful for my reflective practice. Sabrina, engaging in coaching supervision is a form of reflective practice. Sam, my own personal development, self-awareness, making sure I do not have anything that may hinder my coaching presence. Wow. Shall I read more?
Sure, you have a soothing voice, Debbie.
Yeah, Isabel says, I understand that reflective practice is to make sure coaches are being coached too, that they do their own inner work so we avoid projecting on others our own conditioning, values, beliefs, and understand why we are being triggered, why we lose our self-confidence, why when we are not co-creating. Wow, lovely. Jeffrey, okay, that's a question. Dave, peer group reflection is helpful. Oh, wow, rich resources in the group.
So we'll run through a little bit more of what you guys are saying on Menti, and then what we're going to do is we're going to open the floor up for anybody to unmute and share or ask a question to us or to the whole group. So what else are we seeing around? What is your understanding of core competencies 1 and 2? Yeah, being more aware or developing deeper awareness, continuous reflection. Yeah. Cultural awareness is new and good. Our reflective practice is great as we are the wounded warriors who have done our own inner work with real life experience and expanded capacity to hold space for others. It's very nice. Coach's own being and wholeness during the coaching conversation so that we can offer the best version of ourselves when coaching a client. Yeah. Nice. I see a lot of you have picked up on that theme and in under embracing a coaching mindset. Okay, taking into account the wider systemic context. Yeah, which really links to Monday's session with Jane and Anna. Okay. Debbie, do you think we're ready to open the floor up?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So we've got about 5 minutes. We can open up the floor for questions, sharing. Anybody, you can feel free to unmute yourself.
This is about the first two competencies that we just discussed, yeah?
This is Sam.
Okay.
Stared at your slide of the 1 and 2. 2 stood out to me as something interesting. It's sort of, the word that stood out in that entire sentence is flexible. So this means that we are not locked into one way of coaching. We are not locked into things that perhaps are our judgments or the client's judgments. So I love that word, flexible.
Yeah. And isn't it nice, Sam, that they put this under the being of the coach? You know, yeah?
Love it. Love it much.
They did mention it. It's mentioned in the current set, but that's more around, if I remember, questioning, or it's a specific approach for your questions or your communication. But this is now around the being, which is fantastic. Thank you, Sam. Somebody else?
Yeah, it's Kevin, and I think so. I have a quote which was used to me when I was in Mongolia doing research with nomadic cultures. And it says, think vastly and act narrowly. And I think that this pertains not just to this particular competency, but throughout the new competencies as well. But it allows that space to be open up to the thinking vastly of extreme possibilities of reflection and seeing anything that sits in the system, whether it be me, whether it be you, whether it be the system that the person is within, the organization, whichever. It allows for all of that to happen, and that also brings into that sort of sense of culture as well. And then narrowing in the thinking, acting narrowly, is in what is that we can work with, not just with ourselves, but with our client. And so that's what I thought about this, and it's great in the way it has this fluidity back and forth.
Thank you for sharing that, Kevin.
Hey, Lynn and Debbie, I totally agree with the new competencies. This is Doreen here, because I do think that it's important that coaches are continuing to grow and reflect on their own practice. I'm just really curious about if there will be any new assessment methodology. And because some of this, I was just wondering, how are they going to be measured by assessors?
You mean the component of the reflective practice? You're asking, would that be monitored somehow?
Yeah, I'm just wondering how would this impact the assessment methodology? Yeah,
I don't think it would. It's a separate domain, isn't it? Credentialing, training is one domain, and reflective practice, your own personal development, is another domain. And I think this is a big thing that emerged when they were doing that research, that it hasn't really been addressed, hasn't really been encouraged. It's optional. Yeah, you can do your CCEUs, but you could do that in a very tick the box kind of fashion, and it doesn't really lead to internal change or development. So I think this is a really beautiful direction that is acknowledging that coaches, because I mean, if you think about, once you become ACC, PCC, or maybe not ACC, once you reach PCC or even MCC, you don't really have to prove you can coach again. You could stop developing. So there was this common voice that said, we need to keep developing, we need to keep growing. And there's a certain kind of accountability with that. If you have a supervisor, if you've got a mentor, if you're in a peer group that says, hey, I really want to grow and develop. I think a lot of us do that. Evidently not everyone, so they are including this now, sort of a red flag to those who are looking at the landscape. it was a concern that was raised, and they listened, and then they decided to include this as an important competency. Does that address your question?
Yeah.
Lorraine?
Well, I'm not too sure because I'm just wondering because I have to admit I haven't read in detail. Just concerned about if people want to go through a credentialing process. I totally agree with the competencies, especially the process of someone being trained as a coach. It's just I'm just not sure how would someone be accredited as an ACC or PCC or even an MCC, and would these competencies be counted as competencies that would be measured before they can be awarded their credentials?
Oh, I see. All right, thank you for clarifying that. Are you a credential coach, or you're exploring that right now?
I'm a credential coach. I'm glad I don't have to go through the accreditation process. I'm just, asking on behalf of, coaches who are new to this process. And because I do know that when I get to my PCC, I was being kind of marked on every competencies out of the 11. So with these 8 competencies, I'm just wondering how are they going to account for that and measure that?
Okay,
Your
maybe that will
question is
become
very
clearer,
yeah.
right, as we go through the rest, because we're still only on number 1 and number 2.
Yep.
Okay, I think, Debbie, let's move on. We need to.
Yes.
Thank you guys for jumping in. Now let's cover competency 3, 4, 5, and then we're going to open up the floor again. Now, if you look at 3, 4, and 5 later on, you realize that they have now they've now defined, or well, I think put sort of a nice understanding around it, that this is the doing of the coach. So this is what we do, how we do our work. And you would see that number 2 and number 3, under the current one, establishing coaching agreement and establishing trust and intimacy with the client, actually there isn't much change. It's just the definition is just a little bit more succinct and updated. All right, and I think many of you would notice that they removed the word intimacy because, ICF was sharing that across cultures that word can trigger different meanings. Okay, and then number 4, the current number 4 is actually the new number 5, which is around maintaining presence. So that actually stays. So if we go into the details of each of this. So first of all, okay, this is why I sent the slide out. Can you guys see? It's really small. Okay. So
yeah, we can see.
Good. Okay. Under establishing the coaching agreement, the 2 main themes that have arisen. So you'll see that the list is much longer, but you'll see that they have banged a lot on 2 things. Number 1 is the expansion of the coaching agreement. So when it talks about, so let's look at the definition first. Partners with the client and relevant stakeholders, and that has not been in there before, to create clear agreements about the coaching relationship, process, plans, and goals. That's the same. Establishes agreements for the overall coaching agreement as well as those for each coaching session. So they begin to recognize that there are different aspects of the engagement. So they've included stakeholders in, you being able to explain what coaching is and what it's not, and describe the process to the client and relevant stakeholders. And if you look further down, partners with the client and relevant stakeholders to establish an overall coaching plan and goals. And I think those of you who do executive coaching work especially, you would realize that this is actually a very important piece to the success of our coaching, but also similar to relationships, families, working with teenagers. We still also need to engage parents as a stakeholder. So it begins to envelop the wider system. And the other theme that's very strong here is the partnership concept. So partners with the client to determine client-coach compatibility, and all these underneath are all partners, partner with. And I highlighted these in yellow because these are exactly the PCC markers as well. So you can tell how important this is in our work as ICF coaches. ICF really puts, well, it's not only them, because this was a survey that was rolled out to 1,300 coaches. We found that partnership is really important in our work. Okay. Next one, establishing trust and intimacy with the client. So fairly, well, same number of points. If you look at the definition, it's a bit more, can't think of a better word than beautiful. Partners with the client to create a safe, supportive environment that allows the client to share freely, maintains a relationship of mutual respect and trust. So over here, the first one we see seeks to understand the client within their context, which may include identity, environment, experiences, values, and beliefs. So I think what this means for us as coaches, or my interpretation of it, is that as a coach, then when you sit across a person, it's not just seeing them for, you know, the role that they play, the title that they have, what you're saying, you know, clothes that they wear, but to begin to look beyond all that and to recognize why they're saying what they're saying. You know, what is it that's influencing them? What is massaging them to create the kind of situation that they're in right now that makes it a problem or a challenge for them? And just understanding that there are all these, the deeper identity, the environment, their experience, their values already expands your listening and your sensitivity to what the client is saying. So I know a lot of, like what Tony said that night, and a lot of new coaches always ask me, what do you mean by listen to what's not being said? Well, this hints at that. Right at the bottom, a new partnership theme that has emerged. So demonstrates openness. So the coach here, demonstrating openness and transparency as a way to display vulnerability and build trust with the client. So it's very nice. So that recognizes the partnership, the role that the coach has in opening up that space for the client. Number 5, from coaching presence is just is rephrased to maintains presence. So this is about being fully conscious and present with the client, employing a style that is open, flexible, grounded, and confident. And we see reflective practice come in here in number 3. Managers want emotion to stay present with the client. I love how this is called out. And yeah, to me, this is really important because, you know, in working with coaches, this aspect of the inner work is something that all of us are challenged with, whether you are a starting coach or whether you're all the way up to an MCC. We're always dealing with emotions, and we have to be really aware about how these influence the coaching process. Now, the rest of it is all pretty much the same. Things like comfortable working in a space of not knowing, demonstrating curiosity during the coaching process. So that is all so important. So now we go on to unfolding or unpacking what you are hearing from the updated competencies of 3, 4, and 5. And I'm going to share my screen on Menti, but start to think about that. What's different? What do you understand? What calls out to you? And you may not, you know, you don't need to go into highlighting the technical differences, but just from what you're seeing or what you're hearing or what you're feeling or what you're reading in the chat, what do you capture? What's the imprint on you? What is your understanding of core competencies 3, 4, and 5, the updated ones?
Okay, I'm seeing if there are any comments on the chat. Anne says, interesting that they include being grounded in coaching presence. This is one word that is really profound meaning taken in the context of consciousness and balances and intuition part.
What I see on Menti here seems to invite the coach into a relationship more. A coach is a human with feelings, responses, reactions too.
Yeah, there seems to be more a focus on the partnership, the co-creation, co-construction, collaboration experienced in the partnering. So it's like just peppered, this theme of partnering and being equal, and there's an invitation to enter into this space. I like this idea of vulnerability. You know, walls are down and it's a safe space. So I think there's a lot of languaging and acknowledgement that this is a key in a good coaching session, is what the coach does as well in facilitating that and being that. Let's see, what else?
I like this one. Coaching presence is not just the coachee, but also the partnership, environment, stakeholder, collaboration, trust, and openness. And that invites us to really expand ourselves, isn't it? That we're not just sitting across one human, but we're actually sitting across a person, and behind this person is a whole. You've got families, you've got people's lives, you've got team. Sorry, you've got teams.
Interesting comment. Having the courage to say what's needed and not to please the client. That's interesting.
Somebody said here the word managing emotions is vague. A risk is that coaches will block their emotions instead of embrace and acknowledge those and how it influences the listening. Well, I suppose that ties back into the conversation in the chat around reflective practice.
It's an interesting question. Demonstrate the openness. Does it mean the coach can share his or her story?
We can direct that to chat, isn't it, Debbie?
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Demonstrate openness. Does it mean the coach can share his or her story?
Sam says with permission. There's the partnering. Asking permission.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, and we can now open the floor to discuss core competencies 3, 4, and 5. Let me get back to the slides so that okay, any questions, thoughts?
I like this added comment. Wendy says about can you share your story? And Sam says with permission. And Wendy says, yes, in a way that serves the client. And I think that's an important key, is if it helps the client in the session to make progress. Moving forward. Yeah. Okay.
Well, there's a lot of chat going on around the reflective practice bit, and maybe we can invite somebody who would like to talk about that. I see Herman, Nancy, I know Sabrina, all of so much discussion around reflective practice. And since it's showing up a lot, like if you look at maintains presence, would you like to comment on that?
I think maybe we give it a pause and let's be in the moment. And if that's a theme that seems to really be on people's minds, maybe we should give it a little bit more reflection. Would that be useful, everyone, to spend a little more time on the reflective practice? It is new and it is an important aspect of should we explore that? I don't know. Lynn, you want to save it to the end, or? Any thoughts on that?
We can hold space for a while, and if people are ready to move on, we will move on.
So should we maybe go back to the group, take it off of screen share, and see if anybody wants to say a little bit more what's on your mind about reflective practice? Herman, Sabrina, Nancy, do y'all want to?
Okay, maybe I'll just say what I had written. It occurred to me, when we talk about reflective practice, this is ICF speak right now for supervision. So it's like self-supervision. And it just occurred to me as I was sitting here thinking about that, if you think about what the 3 dominant functions of supervision are, it's sort of well, certainly, helping the supervisee develop whatever skills or whatever they need to develop, is to be supportive or to get resourced, because we're in a helping profession, and helping profession sometimes drains people, and sometimes they need to be resourced. And there's a quality aspect, which is, are we acting always ethically? Are we acting in the best way? So in the other helping professions, counseling, therapy, whatever, and clinical social work, there was always that element of making sure that the person is acting in the best possible way. So I was thinking, it's probably, even if you're going to do self-reflection, ask yourself, what should I reflect on? And maybe those, do I need to be resourced? Is there something I need to learn in what came up? And how have I crossed over any ethical boundaries? So I just think asking what to reflect on is a useful question.
Thank you
Yes,
for that,
I should
Herman.
unmute. Yeah, thank you, Herman.
And is there anybody who would like to share how you do reflective practice? And this is so open, it's broad. You do it in a way that it works for you. Some people journal, some people reflect, think about it before they sleep. Some people meditate. How do you do reflective practice? Maybe you share with everybody. Yes, you don't have to raise your hand. You just have to unmute.
Yeah, I don't remember the author, but I'm just remember the technique mean like subject and object. And when you tell your story, most of the time you are the subject of the story, but like when you just stay away from the story and yourself and see it as an object, and you can like observe it. I think like people can change only when they can observe it or realize things. So actually, like we need to step out our story and like observe the object, and then in this story, it's very important like how we interpret, how we use our own language to understand the story. And for example, like the story can consist of the fact and our interpretation, and we need to divide the two factors. And if the interpretation is good and have like helpful impact on us, it's okay. But if it's like damage us, so we need to reframe that by more helpful, more healthy language. And so that is my understanding about reflective practice.
Thank you. Thank you for contributing to everybody. It reminds me of the story that Dr. Rao shared with us today around the second arrow.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of that. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to jump in?
I will. This is Sabrina. Hey, Lynn. So I was just thinking about what I have, in the past 20 years done for myself in my own reflective practicing. And apart from mindfulness and yoga and walks and, all of that good stuff that we've been talking about this past week, where I feel like I've really grown and have breadth and depth as a coach was, to also have someone that I could talk to that would be able to call me on my stuff. In other words, there's, as a coach, I'm the accountability partner for my client, and then I also need to have someone, who holds me accountable. So, being a coach, I go to people for coaching from time to time. I'm a coaching supervisor, so I also am supervised. I'm a psychotherapist, so off I go and I get supervision on the therapeutic stuff. And, it's constantly this kind of refining and kind of finding nuances where I can grow and face my growth edge, to face my edge, where when I embrace that part of myself, I am able to have a much larger capacity to be there for my client. Yeah. So that for me feels very important in reflective practicing.
I like how you emphasized the last bit, because it is ongoing, isn't it?
Mm. Mm.
Thank you, Sabrina. Debbie, are we ready to move on?
I think we can move on. Yeah.
Now we are going to zoom in on 6, 7, 8. So this is a little bit heavy because there are a lot of points under the next two competencies actually. So still under the doing of the coach will be things like listening. So that's similar. And then all of you are familiar with powerful questioning, direct communication, and creating awareness. But this is the change that to me is quite massive in that the updated version recognizes that these three don't act separately, but they actually are a dance that helps to evoke awareness. So the new competency here is number 7, evokes awareness. There is a combination of questioning, direct communication, and creating awareness, and it just makes so much sense. So you would see the arrows from powerful questioning and creating awareness feed into evokes awareness. Same thing for direct communication, it feeds into evokes awareness, but you also see 2 arrows going up and down. What do you think that means? So this means that direct communication as a competency is now recognized to take place throughout all the other competencies. It's not a standalone, but it happens right from the beginning when you talk about ethics and creating the coaching engagement and agreement, all the way to the end when you talk about planning and action and accountability. So that's really nice, the integration there. So if we look at what number 7 means, evokes awareness, facilitates client insight and learning by using tools and techniques such as powerful questioning, silence, metaphor, or an analogy. Now, the next one is another one that's quite major, and they have collapsed. Or 9, 10, 11 are recognized as now being collapsed into number 8. So from designing actions, planning and goal setting, managing progress and accountability, they all have integrated into number 8, which is facilitates client growth. Partners with the client to transform learning and insights into action, promotes client autonomy in the coaching process. I thought that last line really wraps up what we are trying to do through actions and planning and goal setting and managing progress and accountability. It just makes so much sense. Okay, here's where it gets a bit heavy, because I think as most of you would know, the current set, there are quite a lot of points under this. So active listening has shortened, and the key expansion here is how listening is now recognized to include the context and the culture of the client. So if you see here, again, considers the client's context, identity, environment, experience, values, and beliefs to enhance understanding of what the client is communicating. And the last one is a nice one around the holistic view. So the coach has an ability to notice trends in the client's behaviors and emotions across the sessions to discern themes and patterns. Also, because there are these questions around what's the difference between ACC, PCC, MCC, which, by the way, we will address on Friday's panel with the MCCs called the journey, the MCC journey, or the journey to MCC. Can't remember. And I'm on that panel. We will address it there, but I know there are a lot of questions that have been coming through since yesterday around, what's the difference between ACC, PCC, MCC? So one of the things that I've observed is at an ACC level, the tendency is to still focus pretty much on what's happening in the sessions. But at the PCC level, and definitely at the MCC level, there is, it's recognized that a coach at that level is able to discern patterns across sessions. So you're working with a client for over a period of time, and you have the ability to call out a pattern or a blind spot, or something that's repeating, that's deeper, that's stronger, and bring it to the client's attention. Okay, everything else that is not underlined is pretty much the same, it's just more succinct. Okay, you would see that powerful questioning, direct communication, and the last one around creating awareness has all merged into just number 7 alone on evoking awareness. So that is where it's really gone succinct, and I think it's pretty much taken the resulted in the bulk of the reduction from 1,500 words to like 1,000 something words overall. So this is really worth reading, guys. I'm not going to go through one by one, but what we can pay some attention to is the integration again of the context and culture is mentioned. So considers client experience when deciding what is most useful. And this is something that is a question that I get from new coaches all the time. There's so many things to listen. There's so many aspects of the issue, of the challenge. There's so many different solutions that we can address. You know, everything's laid out on the table. What do we do? Where do we go in? You zoom in on first. And it's really great how this competency recognizes that you consider, you know, what is most useful for the client right now. And actually what this hints at also is the partnership. That as a coach, we can't determine what's going to be most useful, but it is in this partnership where you recognize that there is context that's happening, and you then partner with the client to decide what they want to get addressed. Challenges the client as a way to evoke awareness and insight, and that's quite similar to what you see in powerful questioning right now. Same thing with asking questions around the client, such as their thinking, values, needs, wants, and beliefs, so that stays current, exploring beyond current thinking. Yeah, that is also quite similar to what's going on right now. And I've also noticed that this new number 7 set of this competency here doesn't really have much mention of the current competency around direct communication. So that direct communication really seems to have spread out across all the other competencies. And if you read evokes awareness in detail, you realize that it's mostly around questioning and creating awareness as a competency.
Yeah, I think they recognize that the direct communication is a skill, the competence that is just spread throughout the whole session. You don't just do it in one little block, but it's important to encompass those skills throughout the session.
Yeah, and Debbie,
like
that was like a challenge that I always faced as a coach trainer when my students ask me, so give me an example of direct communication. And I find amongst all the other competencies, I go, okay, I can give you some examples, but it's, you know, it's quite limiting, isn't it?
Yeah, we assume we know how to communicate directly and clearly. So if there's a competency in there that highlights we need to do that, well, what does that mean? Well, I think it has a lot to do with the languaging, what we pick up on. I'm just looking at some of my notes because I felt like this is something I needed to go back and address as well. It's using using client's language, but also introducing new language. So you might reframe something and offer something, and that's considered a part of direct communication. And also exploring beyond. So this is the things that I picked up on, but exploring beyond the client's current way of thinking. No wonder they have it included in evoking awareness. So I think it almost has to do with minimizing and the clarity in which you offer something. Not a lot of words, not stacking questions. Because sometimes we just talk around a lot of things until we find one question that sticks. So the minimizing what we say and offering it in a direct, clear way.
Okay, we're moving on to the last one, and that's around facilitating client growth. So another big one where they have collapsed actions, planning, goal setting, managing progress and accountability, all into just this set under number 8. Okay, and the very strong theme here would be the partnership concept. And I think we can see that when we partner with the client in terms of, okay, what can be done next? How are they going to do it? How would they succeed, etc. And to support the client autonomy in the design of all that. So, not sort of stepping into the client's world and trying to figure that out with them and then worry about whether they're going to do it, but to trust in the partnership and to empower the relationship such that the client does do their work and they know that it's part of adding to the relationship. If you look at the second one, that works with the client to integrate new awareness, insights, or learning into their worldview. And this again hints at the integration of the larger context. So this is nice because it recognizes that it's not just learning for what was discussed, but how this learning is going to serve the client in the bigger picture, or how does this change or the result of the effort, how is it going to spill over into the other things that the client is engaged with. So I thought this was nice. It makes it very succinct. The rest of the competencies stay in terms of supporting the client to identify potential results and learning, inviting them to consider how to move forward, celebrating their progress and success. So all that is still something that you still do.
I want to comment on Tony's comment on the chat. The direct communication was the most common reason for failure of PCC and MCC exams when he was an assessor. I would love to hear a little bit more on that. What was missing? What needs to be highlighted, Tony? Would you mind?
Yes, Tony, please unmute yourself and speak.
Are you still here?
Yeah, I am here. Sorry, I just got back from spending the last hour and a half with you guys sweating around the park. Thank you for joining me. If we go back a few years, you used to have 2 assessors doing live exams at the senior levels. And when somebody failed, we sat down at the end and went, okay, let's just talk you through it, give you some feedback. And I would say that the last competency people got not just good at, but comfortable with was the direct communication. And the most common example would be, we would say, for example, the client said this and this and this and this, and you didn't pick up on any of it. So the interesting thing was, nobody ever said, oh, I didn't hear that. They said, yeah, I heard that. I wasn't sure if it was okay to go there. And you talk to friends of mine like Marsha and I and people like that. We've had a lot of conversations about this in the recent years. It's time to be a little bit more direct. So when you get somebody down there, when people can't get it, when they're stuck, it's because they're looking for answers within the boundaries of the beliefs they hold about a situation. And when they come up against those beliefs, you may hear it, you may not hear it, you may sense it, but what gives people the breakthrough is literally to break through the boundary of those beliefs they hold about the situation. And that's just about giving them a push. And so the way I describe it as a coach at that level, your job is to observe and explore. You hear something, call it. Remember also that it says we have to lose our attachment to being right. And then that again is one of the hardest things. External coach, internal coach, whatever, you get paid for getting results, right? So to realize that to get to MCC, you've got to let go of that. Because the more you let go, you need to perform, the more you perform.
So Tony, sorry, are you done?
Pretty much. I'm going to go on for another 5 hours. Yeah, I think I made
I'm almost picking up this little element, a theme. It's almost like I hear confront. So direct communication is not just about saying things very succinctly or clearly, but there's this element of confronting, honesty in the moment. Am I getting what you hear? Am I hearing what you're saying?
Pretty much. I don't think it's confront, but I think it's definitely, you hear it, you call it. Here's what I've observed. Whatever comes up, you just share it. Because the worst thing that can happen is whatever comes up from your subconscious that's triggered by what you get, worst thing that can happen is they get the breakthrough because they go, no, it's not that. And the next thing they say is, oh, it's this. So, that's how it happens. It's having the courage to call what you think, what you're hearing, but without the attachment to being right about it.
Yeah. So you're offering something that you see, observe, and you are offering it as an observe in the moment, as an observer.
Yes.
Yet it's meant to dive a little bit deeper because it's something that you're calling them on.
Yes.
Okay.
So that sounds like, the coach needs to cross an edge, because I think for coaches, part of that learning journey is, when do you call it out, when do you not? So the coach needs to cross the edge so that the client can cross the edge. And then that's where the whole conversation can go much deeper. And I guess now that they have it's not a standalone competency anymore, that then falls under, early on when we saw, that was under this one, evokes awareness, right? But the point of that is an approach, it's a technique to evoke the awareness from the client. But I suppose that also links back to then reflective practice around when the coach can be aware of when they are holding back. So it's all integrated.
Yeah, sorry. And also the idea that as these moments emerge, to offer this kind of direct communication, as we see that it's now peppered throughout. It's not just one little space, but it's throughout the session. When you sense that you want to make a comment or observation that will contribute to the client's progress, and you offer it to provoke or evoke. It's interesting. Okay.
So we can open it up to the floor. What is your understanding of competency 6, 7, and 8? And this is where a lot of the massive changes have occurred. So what do you guys think? What do you feel about it? Any questions, thoughts? You can feel free to unmute yourself and come on.
Hello, Tinging here.
Hi, thanks for the session earlier.
Thank you. So my question is how to balance giving that push and partnering, right? Because to call it out and to hold the client to delve deeper and beyond, we have to be a little bit more active on our end. So they might not want to go over the edge and might resist the observation, or they insist that they are right. So this is probably the most challenging aspect of like moving towards an MCC level right now.
So are you saying that in this case, what you just described, it is the resistance that you are asking how to work with, right? It's not so much the push or pull, but what happens when the resistance comes up?
Yeah, you can put it that way. Or the client doesn't see that it's an issue.
Okay, so open to people to respond.
So we're almost at the end, aren't we?
We are.
Should we should we go get off of screen share and
Yeah, let me do that.
interact with people directly? I prefer seeing faces rather than a PowerPoint. Wow, thank you guys for hanging in there with us. It was probably a lot of technical stuff, yet Lynn and I are really interested in your take on these competencies. Has it contributed to a difference in knowing and understanding? You feel like this was beneficial? Was it a waste of time?
Debbie and Lynn, first of all, thank you for doing the work that you did, like the deep dive and the scrutinizing. I'd be curious, because you guys did the work, and I think for the rest of us, we need to digest a little bit. Was there anything surprising, or the one thing that really stood out for you now that you're coming up for air, having done this deep dive? I'd just like to hear your reflections.
Wow. Lynn, please.
The thing that stood out for me, it wasn't so much a feeling of surprise, but more of, I was glad. I think I was glad, I was moved that they have recognized the larger context that the client is in. So that was one. And it's not, so that, the context, and then also acknowledging stakeholders. But I think for me, it was really more the context that stood out for me, because it shines a light on, for a coach to recognize that there really are these other things that affect the client when they come and sit across us. And when earlier on in the session, when I said I'm excited about this, because even though it's very simple, it really gets to the root of the essence of our work, which is when you sit across the person and you just have this very pure human to human connection. That's when all your senses open up and you connect on a level. You hear all these things that the client is not saying, the background, the environment, what's massaging them. So Herman, I like, this is the part that I like about the updated version.
Thank you.
Debbie?
I have to say I'm kind of resistant to change unless I understand the reason. And once I embraced it and I saw the rigor behind it, and I began to see this is simpler, easier, the languaging, I'm a minimalist, as I've mentioned, the fact that there's 8 competencies now, I love them. And I've talked to other colleagues who also are trainers, and they love them as well. Once we kind of got over the irritation of change and realized and appreciated really the effort of the manpower it took. And I think for me, the biggest appreciation is it is very relevant. It is speaking the language of what we experience and what we see and what we value, which is we want to bring our best. We want to have that connection. So the languaging and the competencies, to me, highlight all of those things that are at the forefront. It's the connection. It's the value of the connection. So I'll just stop there.
But Debbie, you said something. Oh, thank you, Herman. Anything else?
No, I just want to applaud both of you again. Thank you both very much for doing this work. It was very helpful to all of us.
Thank you, Herman. So Debbie, I like what you said about how you were resistant to change. And thank you for calling that out. It's the same with me. And I felt very embarrassed that, oh my gosh, I'm a coach trainer and I've gone through PCC marker training. And, it took me a couple of weeks to actually get on the changes. And I think that's going to be the same it could be the same for a lot of coaches on a call, because then it means we have to sit down, we have to digest it. And there's always this fear of this is resistance to doing that. So I would say I would invite everybody to, I hope this helped to ease that change. And really, if you look at it, there isn't really a major change, but it really is just a simplification in essence of what you already are doing. Debbie, I'm going to do a wrap up, and I'm going to throw it to you to do the official wrap up before we go into our breakout. But you know, what you can do next is find some time, look through the competencies you have. It's on the website. There's also a PDF, and spend some time to do that. Don't worry about whether you need to change anything at this point. Let that sink in. Let that happen for you over time. The breakout room after this session is a place you can discuss that. So it will be useful to talk that out and look at, okay, maybe is there something different that I might have to do, that I want to do? Yeah. So again, to just reinforce, officially nothing's gonna change in terms of your credentialing and stuff. Debbie and I will be holding a workshop the later end of May. We have that date, Debbie, right? And in that session, we're going to handle all the technical questions you guys have. So how do I move across the credentialing levels? What are requirements? So anything that you need to help you with your ACC, MCC, PCC, well, okay, we will take it in that session. So I know some people need that kind of support. It's very confusing. There are a lot of changes year on year. So we will help you out in that session. I'll type the date in the chat box right now. Over to you, Debbie.
Okay. So I invite you, we're going to put you into breakout groups, and you can discuss your understanding of the competencies and what is the impact for you. What difference is it going to make for you? And I think after that we'll be right. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I will just do the closing, and then we will set up the breakout rooms. A huge thank you, Lynn and Debbie. This was super insightful, and I did some notes here, what I personally took away. So I feel like listening to the new 8 categories, for me, it's a kind of a new emphasis on the importance of coaching mindset I wrote down, and this ongoing reflective practice. And what I really like is the importance of this cultural and contextual awareness. There was some quite new words that really resonates with me. And last but not least, a focus on partnership between the coach and the client. It seems to be even more clear. So they were the key takeaways for me. I know there's much more to that, but they were kind of the highlights. So thank you for doing this. So before we go into the breakout rooms, I will share my slides again and close all my 20 screens here. Just give a second. And first of all, we need a group photo. I will stop sharing again. We need a group photo before we all jump off here and go into the breakout. Can I ask everybody for 10 seconds, like an after session exercise, to do a ICW again? We did many others today. We are back to the ICW for 10 seconds so we can take some very nice screenshots. So 1, 2, 3, we go now.
We're done, John. We're good. Thank you.
Oh, very good. Thank you so much. I will start sharing my screen again here. So first of all, again, I want to quickly thank you, our sponsors. So Emergenetics, watch out for the email next week to get access to the free takeaway worth $350. Also, I want to thank you for the coaching app, the C-Suite Executive Coach in your pocket, Starting Point, and the Coach Partner. Amazing partnership here, and thank you for allowing us to do what we do here together as our sponsors. So, very important, tomorrow we have exciting events coming up again. And it's a little bit like a business development day. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, we have the Money Talk session, Proof Your Work Pays Off. And then around lunchtime, we have a panel again. What companies wanting coaches? So basically from inside companies, what are they looking for when they try to hire us as coaches? So very exciting. And in the evening, another exciting session, life in the new normal. Will it be better for you? My answer to this one, of course. But let's see tomorrow after that session. But if you have not signed up, the links are in the chat. So please click on the chat and sign up. And now the most important piece, because I already got pinged here a few times on WhatsApp, where can I submit my CCEUs? So here's the code. So if your phone is supporting scan code, please scan the code. Otherwise, in the chat, you have the link to get your CCEUs. Also, please help us and post on social media. We have this competition going on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter for the person doing the most posts. And you use the hashtag ICWSG2020. Each winner will get a NTUC voucher worth $30. So go for it, please. Please go for it. Again, thank you. And we are setting up the rooms and what is happening. Please reflect on this session, but also overall how this day was for you and what you take away, your one or two things. The rooms will automatically close, and I will officially, on behalf of the ICF committee, say thank you for your patience, participation, and we look forward to see you again tomorrow. Have a wonderful good evening. Bye.